On this week's BattleCry, we're going to talk about the entire world because there's so much going on. It's going to be hard to cover it in a half an hour, but we're going to do it, and you don't want to miss it. Hey everyone, welcome to the BattleCry. It's Sunday night. We've made it past the holiday season. We've made it past New Year's. I hope you and your loved ones had a blessed Christmas. Hope you remembered the reason for the season, the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. For us, it was an incredible family year. We got great news. The family's expanding. More grandkids are coming. It's going to be a busy year next year. So that was great news for us. We made it through the new year. But when I say we made it through the new year, kind of barely. I'm just going to say I'm not 100%. If I sound a little weird, I'm fighting off a little something. I can't hear it all out of this year. It's like full earache mode going on. Don't worry, I'm on antibiotics. I don't need the home remedies. I've tried them all. Eventually I had to go to antibiotics. I'm feeling better, but my balance is a little wonky. I think my voice is a little weird. At least it sounds that way to me because it sounds like I got a cup over my ear or something. But we're going to make do. We're going to make it through the BattleCry because it's important. That's why you're here. You're going to get a ton of information like you always do. I've missed you guys a lot. We want to start the year like we always start every BattleCry, which is a call to action. Now, you might say, and it would be true, that sometimes my calls to action are repetitive. So why do I do the same call to action multiple times? Because it's really important. And because not everybody's doing it. And because if I say it over and over, more of you are going to probably hear it 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And you're going to think, yeah, maybe Mark's right. Maybe I should do that thing. So the calls to action that I have today, there's actually 2 of them. Normally I only have 1. The first one is read the Bible. It's a new year. That's a great New Year's resolution. A lot of people like to read the Bible in a year. There's all kinds of apps that will help you do that. You can buy all kinds of Bibles online. Bibles are selling at a pace never seen before. Since Charlie Kirk's martyrdom, since his assassination, Bibles are selling like crazy. Both free online versions, paid versions, paper versions. One of the ways I love to study the Bible, I've done this a couple times through now, is to read the Bible in a chronological manner, in the history in which it actually took place. Excuse me. For me, that really helped me kind of get the whole picture of the Bible, the whole story of the Bible. So you might want to try that, chronological Bible in the year. I recommend the Tyndale version of that. I really enjoyed that when I did that. My wife, Patty, is doing that with a friend this year. So read the Bible. And by the way, for what it's worth, it doesn't matter whether you're a believer or not. There's lots of wisdom in there. I imagine it'll speak to you whether you're a believer or not. Pick up a Bible, get it digitally on your phone, get it on your iPad, get it on your computer, get a hard copy. You can probably get one free at your local church. Start reading that today. Number 2 is get involved in the fight. We call this the BattleCry because it is a call to action. It is a call to the battle. We're not here just to talk to you and tell you stuff. I'm not here because I feel like you need to hear one more voice. I'm here because I want to engage you. I want you involved in the fight. And what that means specifically for Convention of States is go to conventionofstates.com and sign the petition if you haven't already done so. If you haven't done so, I'm surprised. You're here. You probably have. If you haven't, please do and get other people to do the same, especially in the states we're going to be working to pass this year. States like Kansas up first, North Carolina, Idaho, Iowa. These are places really need your help. Ohio is another place. So sign the petition and then click that Take Action tab at the top and actually get involved. This should be the year. If you're not involved, if you're not engaged, you should get engaged. And look, maybe you come just for the content here. I'm flattered if you do. I appreciate that. I always wonder why anybody would want to listen to me, but I appreciate that you do want to listen to me. And if this isn't your gig, if Convention of States isn't the thing that you want to do, find that thing. It's your responsibility. We are a self-governing country. And that means it starts with you governing yourself, your own affairs, your family's affairs, your community's affairs, your church or temple's affairs, and then out from there into the state and the federal government. It's on you. And when I say you, no, I mean you personally. I don't mean you generically. I mean you personally. Like if you're not doing something, if you're not engaged in making your community a better place, if you're not engaged in politics, Socrates, is either Socrates or Plato said, if you refuse to get involved in politics, then you are destined to be governed by your inferiors. You don't want that. So get involved. Get involved in Convention of States. It's conventionofstates.com/. You can go to the Take Action tab and volunteer, or conventionofstates.com. Just click on the petition, sign the petition, but get involved. It's critically important. Lots of stuff happening in the world. And by the world today, I mean the world, largely written. It's crazy what's going on out there. I was texting with my kids last night. I was saying, I hope you realize what you're living through right now in the world. What's going on in the world is literally the most extraordinary thing I've seen in my entire life. I'm 63 years old, so I've seen quite a bit. We're living in historic times. I hope you're paying attention to this. Step back once in a while, pull your face out of X or Facebook or wherever you're getting your news, off the television. Step back and just look what's going on in the world. And let's start with Iran. This is now, I believe, we're past day 20 of the protests in Iran. It looks like the regime is probably going to fall. Their greatest ally is Russia. Russian state news are reporting that it looks like the regime is going to fall. The mullahs, some of them are already fleeing and getting on flights to Russia. There are reports. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the street. This is a really big deal for a lot of reasons. It's not just about Iran. It is about Iran in the sense that Iran traditionally, and this is important for you to remember, is a pro-Western country. It's Persian. It's not a Muslim country. It's a Persian country. That's important to remember. A lot of people I know that have fled from Iran that live here in the United States, they don't consider themselves Iranian. They consider themselves Persian. And that's an important distinction. So what you're going to see is the rise of a Persian country again. You're seeing them call for our help. You're seeing President Trump behave in an entirely different way than we saw Obama. The last time the population tried to rise up, Obama just sat back and wouldn't say anything, wouldn't comment on it, wouldn't support what was then called the Green Revolution. Instead, Trump is saying, hey, you better not start killing protesters. Some of that's starting to happen. It's going to be interesting to see what Trump does. But I predict that the Iranian regime is going to fall. When that regime falls, what it means for the Middle East and what it means for the world more broadly is more stability. Why? Because Iran is the biggest exporter of terror, of instability in the Middle East. Hezbollah, funded by Iran. Hamas, funded by Iran. Money flowing through Qatar to those two countries and those two entities, I should say, funded by Iran. Terror all over the world funded by Iran. In fact, by the way, the tentacles go all the way to Venezuela, which we're going to talk about next. But Iran is the biggest destabilizing force in the Middle East. With Iran, if that regime falls, if the old Shah's, if the prince, I think it's Reza Pahlavi, comes back, you will see a stable, pro-Western, non-Islamic, secular government in Iran. That is a huge deal. You will see Iran turn from our arch enemy, calls us to the great Satan, to a great ally in the region. They will also be an ally of Israel. So you will see Iran, Israel, the UAE, all these countries, Jordan will enter. The ones that haven't entered into the Abraham Accords will enter. Saudi Arabia will enter into the Abraham Accords. You will see, for the first time in my lifetime, you will see the Middle East stabilize. It will be an incredible blessing for Israel, for the whole Middle East. Peace will break out, prosperity will break out in the Middle East. And that is an incredible thing, not just for the Iranian people. And God bless and watch over the Iranian people as they go through this. It's going to take a lot of bravery. It's not a sure thing, but God bless them as they go through this and watch over them. We should all be praying for the people of Iran right now. Let's move over to Venezuela in our own hemisphere. Obviously, President Trump extradited Maduro. That was a perfectly legal proceeding. Don't let the media tell you anything else. He's been charged with narco trafficking crimes here in the United States of America. He's been arraigned in New York City. It's incredible. That guy's in jail. That was one of the greatest military operations in modern history, certainly in modern American history. Amazing, amazing. They were able to get in and out. No American soldiers were killed. Everybody got out, and they extradited Maduro and his wife. Now, that situation is still very tenuous. We want to be cautious over there. Delcy Rodriguez was Maduro's vice president. She is still one of Maduro's people. And she has now been sworn in by their legislative assembly as the new president or the acting president. And what happens now is a question, in my opinion. I believe that the United States government has some ideas and some plans in place. What I see is the United States government is dividing the power base in the Maduro government. Delcy Rodriguez has said she's going to cooperate with the United States in regard to oil. The guy that runs the oil industry in Venezuela right now, a very wealthy guy who was given that power by Maduro, he also runs the security services. So what he's doing is trying to split the leaders of the regime over there to fracture the power base. It's a very difficult situation. You would think, well, why doesn't the military rise up? Why don't we see a coup in Venezuela? The reason for that is there are over, let me get this number right, over 2,000 generals, 2,000 generals in the Venezuelan military. That was done to spread out the power, so you couldn't get just one or two or five generals to have a coup. You got to get the majority of it. It's almost impossible. Every general's command comes with corruption and corrupted money. They control industries, they control taxation methodologies, they control areas of government that allow them to skim off of government. So all of these generals are getting rich off being generals. And so it's pretty hard to break them away from the regime. So what's going to happen over there? I'm not exactly sure. Again, I'm praying for the Venezuelan people. I believe that President Trump and Marco Rubio and the others who are involved, John Ratcliffe, have a plan. And I believe they're executing on that plan. I am very impressed so far. Venezuela and Iran. If those two fall, which it looks like that's what's happening, that would be the biggest world-changing events in my lifetime. But that's not all. If those two fall, Cuba is going to fall. Cuba gets the majority of its oil, excuse me, I believe it's 80% of its oil from Venezuela. Trump and Marco Rubio and the United States put in a complete oil embargo on no more oil shipments to China from Venezuela. More importantly, no more oil shipments to Cuba. Cuba is going to grind to a halt without Venezuelan oil. They already have wide-scale, long-term blackouts in the country. The country's already falling apart. So I believe we could see the fall of the regime in Cuba as well. That would be incredibly great for the Cuban people, for the Cuban expat community, primarily in Miami, but spread all over the country. And Cuba could be literally like a vacation paradise. I mean, it could be such a wealthy country based on trade with the U.S. and tourism with the U.S. So that's Venezuela, Iran, and Cuba. Now, what does that mean for the rest of the world, for the global order? When you talk about global order, you have to talk about China first, and you have to talk about Russia. China is now in a world of hurt. Venezuela was an operating base in the Western Hemisphere for China. That operating base is now gone. And they won't be out immediately, but they're losing access there, right? They're losing the oil. That a small percentage of their oil was coming from there. It was a significant chunk of Venezuela's oil, small percentage of what China needs. That's now going to be cut off, and their ability to freely operate in the country is going to go away. Iran was operating in the country as well, causing trouble, training their terrorists there. Hezbollah was there, Hamas was there, all out. So that changes the balance of power. It really hurts China. China had invested billions of dollars in Venezuela. All of that is now going to be lost to China, I believe. So that's a real hurt to China. It removes China to some extent from the Western Hemisphere. That's a very good thing in geopolitics. How about Russia? Same with Russia. Russia was heavily invested in Venezuela, heavily involved in Venezuelan politics, very close to the Maduro regime. They're not going to be out as well. So this is a major blow to the two main geopolitical allies of the United States, to Russia and China, what's going on in Venezuela. By the way, same is true with Iran. Iran had made accords with the Chinese, and so that hurts the Chinese as well. Russia had made accords with Iran. So again, this is a very bad time for Russia and China. And then I would extend that out one step further and say, what does this mean for everybody else around the world? And let's start with all the tin pot dictatorships around the world. They got to be looking at their palaces and their secure compounds and thinking, maybe I'm not safe. Everything that goes bump in the dark is going to terrify them. And that is a very healthy thing when the U.S. has that sort of big stick respect all over the world. If you're a tin pot dictator and you do what, say, Maduro did and say, President Trump, you're a coward, come for me, he might come for you. He legitimately might come for you. He doesn't like that very much. I think if you look at next potentially on the chopping block, that's going to be Mexico. Their President Sheinbaum is a lunatic. They've been trying to overthrow the U.S. with illegal migration, with birthright citizenship, and that is going to come to a screeching halt. I have a feeling President Trump is going to be dealing with that very shortly. So what we're seeing is an entire remake of the global order, a weakening of China, a weakening of Russia, the destruction of the mullahocracy in Iran, the theocracy in Iran. I think this is a huge change, the removal of Maduro, the fracturing of the Maduro regime, and I think you're going to see ultimately the fall of that regime and freedom return to Venezuela. Venezuela used to be one of the richest countries, not just in the hemisphere, but in the world. They are very resource rich. They can be a very rich country again. It can happen in a matter of a decade. They could be a very rich country again. I do believe that's going to happen. I was texting all this stuff with my kids because what I was saying to my kids is, for the first time since I've had kids, I'm looking out because of what President Trump is doing. God bless President Trump. I'm looking out at the world and saying, it might be a better place for my kids than it was for me. It might be. I think that's what it's looking like. I think God is moving mightily in 2026, and I think we're going to continue to see a lot more of that. So I'm very excited for what's going on the international stage. Now let's bring it back home. Back at home, there's a lot of chaos. Obviously, the big story of the week is in Minneapolis. You had ICE doing raids in Minneapolis. You had a crazy woke white woman who decided that she was going to block ICE agents, and then when told to get out of her car, she decided she was going to try to run over an ICE agent, and unfortunately, she was killed. And she was killed in absolutely justifiable self-defense. I've watched the video from every single angle. I've watched it in slow motion. I watched it more times than I care to admit because it's really sad and sick to see somebody die like this. But this woman ran over, actually hit with her vehicle, an ICE officer she was aiming for. Clearly, you can watch her tires reverse. You can watch them start to spin forward as she accelerates, literally spinning on the ice. And you can watch her go straight for this guy. And there are angles where you can actually see the car make impact with him slide back as he's pulling his firearm and shooting her in the car. Justifiable self-defense. Absolutely. So you have people on the left calling it murder, saying that this guy had no right to shoot her. This woman was impeding lawful law enforcement activities. She accelerated her car directly at a law enforcement officer. He had every right to shoot her. Is it sad? Of course it's still sad. Anytime somebody dies when they have an altercation with police, I don't want people dying. But this is a woman with children who chose to put herself in the line of fire, who chose to try to impede federal law enforcement. By the way, her wife, yeah, you heard that correctly. You're probably not surprised by that. Her wife was there and got out of the car prior to this woman doing this so that she could film this woman blocking ICE agents. In other words, she wanted to film her wife while they're both away from their children. God knows where the children are. She wanted to film her wife impeding law enforcement activities for social media purposes. Instead, what she got to do is film her wife trying to run over a law enforcement officer and then being killed. Very unfortunate. Of course, then there were riots. And then, of course, the usual Democrats came out. They had the exact same talking points. They said that this woman was there as a quote unquote legal observer. Now, you could watch any of the video from any angle and you could see she was not there observing. She had pulled her car in front of law enforcement vehicles perpendicular across a street in the middle of a street, blocking law enforcement. So you understand this, when law enforcement officers get blocked like that, that's considered a setup for an ambush. As soon as their car is stopped and somebody's across in front of them, they're stuck. And that is ambush territory. And so this woman looks like she's setting up an ambush. I'm not saying she was or not, but that's the situation she's created. And these are the tactics that these people are being taught, that Antifa is teaching them. So she set this whole thing up, and Democrats are calling it she was a lawful observer. No, she was unlawfully interfering with law enforcement and then tried to run over a law enforcement officer. Watch the videos for yourself. There's one that's just an absolute clear shot of her driving straight at this guy, him bouncing off the front of the car as he pulls out his firearm and begins shooting at her. There were, by the way, I think the next day or the same day, 2 more shot in Portland. These were members of the Tren de Aragua gang. This was a traffic stop by ICE, and one is wanted for murder, and the other one is just a member of this gang, this horrible Venezuelan gang, tying us back into Venezuela. And both of them were shot in this altercation. Neither of them died. This stuff is happening because Democrats are clearly telling their people to get in the line of fire, to use their bodies and get in between law enforcement and criminals. The Democrats have become the party of the criminal, of the murderer, of the rapist, of the drug dealer, of the sex trafficker, of the child molester. These are the people that they are protecting to the risk of federal law enforcement officers. It's outrageous. It's offensive. It's got to stop. I would argue it borders on insurrection. If they interfere, they're telling people to interfere with federal law enforcement activities. That is a very dangerous thing. We're getting towards civil war in the country if they're going to continue doing that. Now, with all this news going on internationally and around this stuff that happened in Minneapolis, the shooting of this woman who was interfering with law enforcement activity, we can't drop the ball on the Somali fraud story. This is bigger than the Somali fraud. This is the invasion of a hostile culture. This is the part I want you to understand about the Somali fraud. What they're doing is what they do. And what I mean by that is this is how the world works in Somalia and many third world countries around the world. If you have the opportunity to take advantage of the government and to steal money from the government and you don't do it, you are considered stupid. But in the United States, we're a rule of law culture, and it requires people to believe in and want to follow the rule of law. That's not the culture that Somalians bring to the United States of America. They don't adopt our culture. They bring their culture. This is a hostile culture invading the United States of America. This fraud is not an exception. It's not a surprise. It is part of the culture. It is to be expected. I love this week's Secretary Bessent. Treasury Secretary Bessent was on top of this, and they are saying anybody now, this is a new rule, if you're on welfare, you can't send money overseas. So most of this money, or a huge chunk of this money, is being sent over to Somalia and other places overseas. That stops now, right? If you're taking money from the American taxpayer, you can't send it overseas. If you're sending it overseas, we're giving you too much money. The welfare is supposed to allow you to survive, not to send money overseas to your relatives. So now, from now on, if you are on any kind of taxpayer-funded assistance, you cannot wire money overseas. And that's the way it should have always been. I think that's great. I think they should prevent people from sending money to their home countries anyway. They should tax it at 50, 60, 80% to stop that. It's crazy to allow people to come here, extract money from our economy, and then send it away from our economy. The last thing I want to talk about is the Groyper Wars. Groypers are the followers of Nick Fuentes, the Nazi white supremacist guy. His followers are called Groypers. I don't even know why. But now it appears that Tucker Carlson has become a full Groyper. He's in love with Nick Fuentes. Megyn Kelly has become Grandma Groyper. She appears to be all in on Nick Fuentes. They interviewed each other in one of the most sycophantic interviews I've ever seen in my life, and talked. Megan actually said, this Fuentes guy, he's got some really smart stuff to say, and there's some things we can learn. I mean, it was unbelievable. I don't know how low these guys will go. Tucker, there's video now of him circulating that said that the reason that we're kidnapping Maduro is because Maduro has a country where gay marriage is illegal, and we don't like that. He coined the term globo homo or something, like we're taking Maduro because we want gay marriage in Venezuela. This is just insane. Tucker, Megan, Fuentes, all these guys, they've gone completely nuts. They're down the toilet. Don't follow them. If you follow them, I promise you're going to end up in the sewer. You're going to end up with that stuff all over yourself. I watch this stuff because I have to for a living, but I highly recommend you stay off that train. For last week in COS world, I was actually supposed to be in Ohio, but the earache, the sinus thing, couldn't fly. Doctor said no flying. Patty wet for me. She did a great job. Next week, I'm home. And then the following week, I'm headed to Kansas for some legislative stuff. I'm super excited about that. We will talk more about that next week. We're going to go to Q&A, but before we do, remember to like this video, hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, help us to reach more people. We do it by you guys doing it for us. We just passed 110,000 signatures on our open letter to Trump, asking him to talk more about Convention of States. As you know, he posted about Convention of States several weeks ago. We think we're going to get more out of Trump doing supportive stuff for Convention of States. We're past 110,000 signatures. So go to conventionofstates.com/Trump. Check out COS at Home with Heidi St. John. She's a very influential podcaster and our newest endorser. She is homeschool mom extraordinaire, really talented podcaster, really smart woman, great friend of Convention of States. Again, go to conventionofstates.com at home. Next month, we'll have Mike Ferris on Convention of States at home. I catch that the first Wednesday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern time. All right, now we're going to go to Ask Mark Anything, my favorite part of the show, because you guys are the smartest part of the show. So you always ask smart questions. We'll start with Kay Berlage. She says, since 2013, how many states have implemented COS? What have you accomplished? Well, Kay, let's see. Since 2013, we have 19 states that have passed it, never done before in American history. We're one organization set out to do this. We have over 6 million people, I believe, now involved across the country. And our activists are involved in so many things. We've been involved in helping on pro-life legislation, pro-tax reform legislation, pro-election reform legislation. I can tell you, if you talk to groups like Alliance Defending Freedom or Heritage Action or these other groups, they'll tell you we serve as their shock troops on the ground, not just for COS, but in everything conservative. JB asks, how many states must be present at an Article 5 convention to constitute a quorum? JB, I would say that would be a simple majority. So in other words, 50 states, you need 26 states to constitute a quorum. Ellen Ayers says, I'm worried that we get great amendments. How do we enforce it? Alan, if you look at history, anytime you get amendments to the Constitution, they're just followed. And the reason they're followed is this is the most muscular effort in the United States system of governance. In other words, getting an amendment across the finish line, getting 38 states to ratify it, the courts follow it, Congress follows it. So we don't think there will be any problem with that. History shows us that. TJ Frederick says, I've been preaching for a Convention of States for years on social media. Most people don't even know about it. Am I wasting my breath? Heck no, you're not wasting your breath, TJ. The reason that we have 19 states, I think we're about to get our 20th. We'll talk about that more next week. The reason we have 19 and almost 20 states right now is because of you and people like you who talk about it all the time. Keep talking about it. Don't give up. It's guys like you that have been in the field talking about it for a long time that are our greatest champions, and we need to keep going and help us get it across the finish line. We're going to do that sooner rather than later. Don't forget the call to action this week. Read your Bible. Maybe a chronological Bible, maybe a hard copy, maybe electronic. Just read your Bible every day and get involved. Go to conventionofstates.com, sign the petition, click the Take Action tab, and get involved today. God bless you guys, and we will see you next week on the BattleCry.